Week 5 in ACC football was an absolute roller coaster, including formerly top 10 Florida State falling at Virginia. Here's what happens next.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And UVA over FSU was not even the most surprising result of the weekend. I would say Virginia Tech winning, and we're going to talk about that with Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. Virginia Tech winning that game was an even bigger surprise for me, and there were other roller coaster results over the weekend. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On ACC your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs, former NC State defensive lineman and co-host of Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. We'll talk about the new AP poll, which actually has a new ACC team in there. We got 4 in there now. It's been 3 for the last few weeks. We'll talk about Georgia Tech surviving with a little help from the ACC officials against Wake Forest. We'll talk about that Virginia Tech win. Let's talk about that UVA win. And I know, Kenton, after a result like that, a top 10 team favored by about a touchdown goes into Virginia. The bigger story afterwards is the team who lost the game, and we'll get into that. But got to give UVA a ton of credit. Their offense looked, as good against Florida State, surprisingly, as it has against some of the lesser teams that they faced this year. Chandler Morris deserves a lot of credit. Tony Elliott for basically getting himself off the hot seat, Virginia's head coach. So I guess we can start with that. You can see why their fans so enthusiastically and controversially rushed the field afterwards.
In the words of Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were. And Florida State let them off the hook. Let's really get into it, right? Donno, did you and I not say, or did I not say on this show last week, Florida State is going to sleepwalk into this game and they'll have enough talent to overcome it down the stretch?
Yeah.
Did they not sleepwalk early in this game? Oh. This game had every element of a trap game, and Florida State showed that they're not prepared to be the hunted yet. They have not reached that level where they can be successful being the team that is looked at as, oh, you're the pinnacle again. And that's just the reality. And that doesn't mean they're a terrible team. It doesn't mean that they have no chance to win out, because they've got a huge opportunity in front of them with Miami coming up. But in this game, they suffered from many of the concentration problems that you and I warned. If they're overlooking this Virginia team and they're looking to Miami, they can very easily fall for this trap. They can very easily fall for a trap that's being sprung in Charlottesville. And then next thing you know, those kids are storming the field and flipping off Castellanos. That's what was happening, because Florida State came unprepared. They spotted them 14 points. And honestly, there were multiple moments in that game where it felt like Virginia could have taken the game over. Remember that incomplete pass? That was the incomplete pass early that looked a lot like a fumble to me, but they ended up calling it incomplete, and it was completely unforced. Nobody touched the guy. He catches the ball, turns around, and just drops it. I can't remember which receiver for Florida State it was, but he turned around and just dropped the ball. And so that is a clear sign that this was not about Virginia being dominant. And don't get me wrong, Virginia had an excellent offensive plan, and their backs run hard. Those boys run hard. So I'm not taking anything away from Virginia. Defensively, they held on. They made plays when they had to. And like I always say about defenses that aren't the best, you need to be opportunistic. And how did the game end? On an interception. Be opportunistic. When that moment comes, take advantage of it. How did they end another Florida State drive where Florida State was inside their 10? With an interception. So twice, when Florida State's in plus territory, you take the ball away. That's what you're looking for. You cannot ask for more from a defense that does not have the talent to where you're looking up saying, we got a Ruben Bain on our defensive line. We'll be all right. No. The defensive lineman everybody talks about from Virginia, everybody talks about him because he's married. Nobody's like, hey, he's one of the best defensive linemen. And they're like, oh, he's a family guy. He's a great guy. He has a great family. So that is, Virginia did everything that they had to do. Offensively, Chandler Morris in that running game did enough. They weren't perfect, but they did enough. And Florida State ultimately looked the worst that they've looked all season because I think that they walked through this game. I think that much like we warned about, which Florida State fans were in our comments, said
they were angry. This was what we said before the game. And the funny thing was, we both picked Florida State to win the game.
Exactly.
You had covering the spread, but FSU win. I had Florida State covering the spread, and yet all of our comments, they were so angry that we said, hey, maybe there's an upset brewing when we didn't even pick it that way.
Exactly. I picked Florida State, but I acknowledge there's a chance that they overlooked this Florida State at this Virginia team, and this ends up being a trap game because it had all the makings. And lo and behold, I feel like I'm in Yu-Gi-Oh! Again because this trap card was activated amazingly in Virginia. And now, UVA is the proud winners of proud possessors, rather, of a top 10 win.
Well, and Thomas Castellanos said something to the effect after the game that basically admitted that they, weren't mentally prepared and kind of implying, hey, we can learn a lesson from this result. Something else you said is absolutely true, that like Florida State can basically take a mulligan and completely undo this by winning against Miami at home this weekend, because then, Miami, who appears to be, the biggest threat to win an ACC championship this year, Florida State beats them head to head. You both have one conference loss and FSU has the tiebreaker. So that puts you in a really good position for the rest of the season. So if they can get that dub, now if they don't, they become Clemson basically in the standings. But if they can get that win against Miami, nothing really changes. Their big goal is right in front of them right now. Now, here's the thing. So you talk about the sleepwalking and all that. Is there anything, though, you take away from Florida State's performance where you say, okay, this could bode very well for Miami this weekend, even if FSU is mentally prepared? Because I will say I see some good and some bad when it comes to how Florida State played. If I'm looking at this from a Miami point of view, obviously Deuce Robinson is someone who stands out that, hey, that guy can take a game over if you give Castellanos time to throw to him. Overall, Gus Malzahn's offense, very dangerous, a lot of misdirection, a lot of eye candy. If you're not prepared for it, they can make you look really silly on defense. But on the flip side, from a Miami point of view, I will say Florida State at the line of scrimmage looks exploitable for Miami with what Miami has on the defensive line and especially what Miami has on the offensive line. Because, Kenton, Virginia's offensive line was down 3 starters. Yeah. And I don't expect they have so much depth that they should have looked that good on the O-line with 3 starters out. They rushed for 211 yards against Florida State. Yeah. This week, you're going up against Miami's offensive line, and you're going up against Mark Fletcher and Marty Brown and possibly a returning Jordan Lyle this week. That's a matchup, I think, that goes very well in Miami's favor.
Absolutely, but even beyond the line of scrimmage, because the line of scrimmage gives you those first 5-6 yards. The lack of tackling, the lack of ability to make open field tackles. Fletcher is a big boy now. When he's coming at you, you've got to strap your grown man parts on and make a tackle, okay? Lyle is shifty. If you think that, hey, I'm just going to come up here and do whatever and we're going to be all right. We saw from Taylor in multiple games this season, in every game this season pretty much, he is a powerful back with good contact balance. He has some moves, and when he gets in that open field, if he's even, goodbye. And he showed it multiple times this game. He showed that ability to break tackles, to make yards after contact. So you talk about the physicality of Miami. I would be somewhat excited about that. But if I'm their backs, I'm licking my chops. If I'm that running back room, I'm seeing some good lamb chops on that field. I'm seeing some good braised oxtail on that field. I'm seeing some good mac and cheese and not all that other stuff that they experiment with now that look kind of fun. I'm talking about the baked mac and cheese, the type you can run a knife across and hear that good scrape. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
You're making me hungry.
but that's what I'm looking at if I'm looking at this Florida State defense. Now, on the flip side, Florida State can point to this and say, do y'all see now why you have to be locked in every game? Do you see now how every other game that we've played, including against the backs from Bama, we have been able to first contact down. We have been able to, hey, if we're contacting a runner, he's hitting the ground. But this game, we were not mentally sharp enough. And so it's not an aspect of we're being out talented or out physical. It's we're being out executed. We have multiple players to the ball and we're just not executing. So I think that there is a lot here, on a lot of meat on the bone from both Florida State and Miami. And the last thing I'll say is this. This could be a moment where we see Florida State pull it together, rally as a team, and say, this season isn't over. We will fight. We will claw. We will not let one loss turn into 2, turn into 3, turn into 4. Or we could see this Florida State team fall apart at the seams. It's all to be seen.
Well, there's still a couple more things I want to break down from that Virginia double overtime win against Florida State, including a controversial call on a Florida State. Was it a catch or wasn't it a catch? And another game, I count at least 3 in 5 weeks, field stormings, field rushings by fans that have happened in 3 at least. I might be even forgetting one that have happened in 5 weeks of college football in ACC stadiums so far. The ACC is trying to crack down on this. I don't know if it's possible to take field rushing away from the game. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Folks, caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get a boost when you need it. Guys, I love the grape flavor. I recently retried the berry flavor, and that one's right up there for me. And I'm going to get daring this week. I'm going to go for pomegranate. I think that sounds like the perfect next one to try. And honestly, with 5-Hour, I love how fast it kicks in and that it's sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. Give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love and be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On Wolfpack with Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone. Check out Locked On Canes. Of course, I'm going to be very busy this week talking Miami versus Florida State because that is going down 7:30 p.m. this Saturday. You know, Kenton, I still think College Game Day should have chosen to go to Tallahassee this week because I still think Miami at Florida State is a bigger game than Alabama at Vanderbilt. You know, I know there's storylines for both. Bama lost to Vandy last year. They're out for payback. Bama just beat Georgia, so they're, you know, week to week. Bama, even though Florida State beat Bama, I guess you could say, what have you done for me lately? Bama just got a big win. Florida State just suffered an upset loss. I was not surprised whatsoever that they decided to go to Tuscaloosa because Kenton, of course, the ACC is not going to get any sort of favorable treatment from ESPN or anybody else. If it's a tough decision, they're going to choose the SEC 10 times out of 10. And unfortunately,
Absolutely.
Florida State losing to Virginia made that a tough decision. Would not have been a tough decision if they were undefeated.
Absolutely. That would have been 2 top 5 teams coming in, rivalry. This would have harkened us back to the old days, those early 2000s, late 90s days. We got Heisman winners all over the field. We got national champions all over the field. We got future gold jackets all over the field. You know, that loss, it put it in contention. And I will say this. I mean, at the end of the day, you are looking at 2 games which have a total of what? 5-1, 5-0, 4-1 on both sides. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. But when you watch games on ESPN, even games that feature only ACC teams, what are all the commercials about? What are all the commercials about? SEC all through the commercials. So why are we surprised, Donno? You know, I'm not surprised. Not. You're not surprised. But certain people that saw this from the outside looking in are very surprised, although it is disappointing.
Yeah, so a controversial play in overtime for Florida State, Thomas Castellanos hits Deuce Robinson, who had an incredible game, regardless of this particular play. He hits Deuce Robinson in the end zone. There's bobbling. It was kind of a hot potato thing that he does throughout the end zone. Now, I'm going to have to ask you your opinion because I don't think Florida State fans want to hear mine because they see the set behind me. I'll give my opinion anyway. I think if that happens to the team that you root for, you're going to be pissed, right? If that call was made against Miami, I would be pissed, especially in a big moment like that. So I get it. Even if you don't and we don't like the rule, and the ACC actually, that was one of those live looks into the replay center and they talked it through. I actually thought their explanation, I'm not going to prop up ACC officiating. We're going to bash them in a couple minutes here. But I thought in this sense, Kenton, I thought they got the call right because he never had full control in the end zone. So you could say, hey, the ball was in his hands the entire time, but Robinson never established control. So I thought they made the right call with a no catch. Again, nobody cares what I think. Tell me what you think.
I agree. I mean, it's that stupid thing of what is a catch, what is possession, and if you're honest with the rule book, by the book, trust me, I'm a guy that watched Calvin Johnson come down with the ball in the end zone against the Bears all those years ago and had it secured, took about 3 steps, went to the ground, and then all of a sudden it's an incompletion. So I hate it as much as anybody. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, that rule is cool and fair. If we're talking spirit of the game type of deal, it's a catch. But by the letter of the rule, in terms of did he possess it? And did he possess it with a foot down in the end zone? By the letter of the law, he did not. It continued to move. He continued to recatch it. He would have been better with, I believe, the second to last when it looked like he had it, but he let it go to get a better grip on it. He would have been better kind of holding it and letting him wiggle around a bit that last time, because at least then you've got the argument of, hey, the ball is in my hands and it's not, I'm not taking hands off to regather and regroup there. But it's, again, it's one of those spirit of the game things where it's like spirit of the game, that's a catch. We're playing backyard football. We're playing, football on the in the street. That's a catch. But, for the sake of what happened there, it's unfortunately, not a catch. And again, I'm not going to give anybody the love and benefit of, well, the refs are so mean to you and you just didn't deserve it, because everybody could say that. Everybody can say it. Almost everybody has got a loss in conference.
Wake Forest today. I mean, who?
Wake Forest today, NC State last week. Everybody's got a gripe against the refs for something. At the end of the day, do not let this game be close if you're Florida State. I say that all the time. And some people will say, well, Ken, you wouldn't say it to NC State. Go back and watch my episode in terms of the review for Duke. I absolutely would. I absolutely say, don't let one play determine that game for you. Don't let it happen. And so, it's unfortunate. But again, you came into that game and you spotted them 14 points or 17 points. I believe it was a 17-0 lead before they stormed back.
I think it was 14. I think it was 14.
Okay, 14, 17, whichever one it was. You cannot spot a conference opponent that type of lead. You just can't do it. And so, ultimately the result is what it is. But I'll tell you, that wasn't even as controversial as the field storming for some reason, which was very surprising to me.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's get into that. So that was, even before the final play was finished, the Virginia fans, and with that little grassy knoll, that I feel like every good conspiracy needs a grassy knoll. So with that grassy knoll that they have where the students or whoever sit, there's no fence, there's no wall in front of that. So if everyone, and of course they were anticipating this, if we win this game, we're going to storm the freaking field is what they were all thinking. So everyone started lining up on that hill there, because there was no fence. Although you had a few security guards that were just like, hey, just don't run over me, please. Go ahead, do what you got to do. So as soon as that pass was intercepted, before the Virginia player who intercepted it even hit the ground, they were off to the races. And what made it look really scary was, Florida State receiver Squirrel White, who is the intended target, had just fallen to the ground. And then he completely disappeared by a sea of Virginia fans. And Squirrel White, by the way, is okay. Thank God. Nothing happened to him. Nothing happened to Mike Norvell or Tommy Castellano, although that one fan went up to him and put up the middle finger while he was filming live. So a lot of controversy came out of that. Now, the ACC and Kenton, we were both at the, the Commissioners Forum back in July. The ACC is trying to to crack down on storming the field and storming the court. Because, yeah, it creates a completely unsafe environment. Just, the personnel, anybody who's on the field is in danger when you just allow thousands of people to run full speed at you. So the ACC is trying to crack down. And the way that they're trying to crack down on it is $50,000 fines to the home team, right? So already this year, we had Florida State fans rushing the field when they beat Bama, Georgia Tech fans rushing the field when they beat Clemson at home, and now Virginia fans rushing the field against Florida State. Those are the three that pop into my mind, 3 in 5 weeks already. And by the way, the $50,000 fine, ironically enough, goes to the opposing team. So Florida State, they got their $50,000 fine canceled out because they received $50,000 now from Virginia. So I guess they're all square, but it's like, obviously a $50,000 fine is doing nothing to stop this from happening. Like, is there anything the ACC could actually do? I think the only thing they could do is like actually threaten to use like facial recognition technology to suspend or maybe even bar forever the fans who do it. Like, if hey, if I rush the field and I get caught on camera, I may not be able to watch a home game the rest of this year or maybe ever again. I don't know what else they can do, because what do if I'm a college student and I'm about to rush the field after an upset, what do I care if it's going to cost my administration $50,000? Like, that's not doing anything.
Donno, the highest possible fine is $200,000, correct?
Oh, really? Okay, if you're a repeat offender, yeah.
Yeah, if you're a repeat offender, the highest is $200,000, correct?
I think so, yeah.
The average ACC budget is about $140 million, meaning they could afford to be repeat offenders 700 times.
Wow. Okay, but here's my question. You may not know this, so I'll have to look this up. For the repeat offender thing, like, when does it reset? Like, does it reset after every season? Is it every 5 years? Because, like, I mean, how many wins can you get in 1 year that you're going to rush the field 3 or 4 times?
So here's my point. Regardless of if it resets at the end of 1 year or if it resets at the end of 5, this is a drop in the bucket, man.
Yeah.
You've got to come stronger if you're going to say a fine incentivizes this, because here's how I would think about the fine if I was the ACC. Let's pretend for a second, and I hate to be this guy. I really do. Because I know that it hurts smaller schools mostly, and it hurts schools that are traditionally not powers, because Florida State would not storm the field for beating Virginia. That's just the reality.
Right.
But this is the facts of the matter. Let's pretend that we're in a world where Squirrel White was at the bottom of the pile, and some of those fans weren't so classy and thoughtful to avoid him. Let's say a couple stepped in the wrong spot. And I hate being the person that takes it to this extreme, but when you're talking about player health and safety, it does need to go to this extreme. Yeah. If a couple people had stepped in the wrong spot on Squirrel and he goes on to the great beyond, whatever you believe, whatever did, he goes on to the afterlife, right?
Sure.
How much is that lawsuit that his family is going to file against Virginia and the ACC going to be?
7 to 8 figures.
So that's what the fines need to be. That's what the fines need to be. I think first time, $500,000. First time, okay, $500,000. Half of it goes to the other school. Half of it goes to a charity of your choice. First time, $500,000. And then after that, it doubles without a cap. So if your school keeps feeling the need to storm the field, storm the court, that's fine. You're going to end up paying in the millions to do it. Because again, and this is why I say that. Either you allow it or you put the hammer down. Don't do no slap on the wrist. Yeah. If you're going to allow it and say, you know what, we'll take the risk. I'm fine with you saying we'll take the risk. I'm fine with you bringing the hammer down. What I'm not fine with is that, we told them stop. Oh, we charged them what would be tantamount to 1/500th of their budget. Oh, we told them. No. You got to pull out your big boy stick and say, my mother always used to say, you don't know what to do, so I'm going to help you along the way. The statute of limitation has passed. I'm not going to tell you what my mother would do to help us along the way. She would just give us a reminder of what we needed to do. The ACC needs to give a firm reminder. I'm not expecting Jim Phillips to pull off his belt in the middle of the field and say, come here, Tony Allen. I'm not
Mario Cristobal just did it to Billy Napier a couple weeks ago.
But you get my point. There needs to be either you come down seriously or you let it rock. And I get why the ACC is doing this, because from their perspective, you cannot sue the ACC when they're saying, hey, we are finding these teams and we have done things to disincentivize this or disincentivize this rather, but they need to be more serious about that, the punishment for it.
Well, I'm going to let Kenton drink some water for his hiccups there, because when we come back, I need him at full strength, because does Dave Doran have a future beyond this season or beyond this week at NC State? If I'm being honest here, they lost to Virginia Tech. Also, Georgia Tech, they had an off week, but they still found a way to win at Wake Forest. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. One of the tools that helps make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system that you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. I love how Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts. It's like a shared inbox, so no customer gets left hanging. Whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. We are also brought to you by FanDuel. Chaos for all the sports bettors out there this past weekend, not just in the ACC. You had Indiana ruining the spread with an intentional safety at the end of the game. Like, this was an insane weekend in college football and in the NFL. And FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays. I've tried player props. I've even followed the live games, or the live lines during games, I should say. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started with FanDuel. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack joins me, Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. All right, Kenton. So, it's funny because we've had a lot of conversations the last couple of weeks about how Georgia Tech, they do this thing every year where they play up to the competition against good to great teams. They'll play down to the competition when they play against teams like Wake Forest. And Georgia Tech should consider themselves very lucky because, and you mentioned this happened to NC State against Duke a couple of weeks ago. Fourth quarter, game-sealing drive potentially for Robbie Ashford and Wake Forest. Georgia Tech has a guy clearly offsides in the neutral, all over the neutral zone when the ball is snapped. And Ashford makes a heads-up play when you know offsides is going to get called. Take a shot downfield. It's a free play. Why not? Now, that shot downfield was incomplete, and then he was completely baffled to find out the officials were not interested in calling offsides when offsides clearly happened. That took away Wake Forest's shot to seal the game. Georgia Tech took advantage. The game ends up in overtime. Now, I'm not really happy with Jake Dickert's decision where basically in first overtime, he was just tired of playing the game. He's like, all right, we're going to go for 2. If we win, game is over. If we lose, game is over. Like, I thought the old rule was go for the win on the road, go for the tie at home, I thought. But Dickert was like, let's end the game right now. And the 2-point conversion failed. Georgia Tech won, but Georgia Tech got bailed out by the officials, Ken.
Well, they absolutely did. But I say about that call the same thing I say about any other call. You cannot rely upon the officials. You can't, especially in the ACC. If you give them a chance, they're going to take it away from you every time. So leave no doubt. But with that being said, the officiating in that game, like in every other game, was sketchy all the way through, to say the least. It just, the ACC officials, some of the worst in the business. But even more important, Georgia Tech, this is exactly what we were talking about coming into that game. Are you ready to be the hunted? Are you ready to be the team with a number by your name that keeps getting lower and lower and lower, which means what? Now you become everybody's Super Bowl. Now you become everybody's, we're licking our chops. We're excited. We're salivating. We need to know how to beat them. Are they prepared to be that? And do they have the mental fortitude to lock in each and every week? I have my doubts. And this game didn't quell them. This game did not put those doubts to rest. Instead, it gave those doubts a 5-hour energy. It said, hey, those doubts, come on, wake up. It's time to roll, baby. Because I look at this team and I say, you have much more talent than Wake Forest. You should be much better up front than Wake Forest. NC State, who could not run the ball against Virginia Tech at the same clip that Wofford did, ran all over Wake Forest. Right. Why couldn't you? What's going on? You've got a quarterback that is a runner. You've got Jamal Haynes back there. You've got a system that uses the wide receivers in the run game in a more meaningful way than most other schools do. So what happened to that scheming and planning? It's a very disappointing showing by Georgia Tech, but I will give Georgia Tech this. It is important to find a way to win those games even when you don't play.
That's true. Yeah.
The best teams find a way, even when they struggle, even when it ain't pretty, they find a way. Even when you need a little help from the Zebras, they find a way to get it done, which they did. You got to give them credit.
Yeah. Like, Louisville found a way to win at Pitt. We'll talk more about that one this week. Duke dismantled Syracuse. And I know Steve Angeli's out for the season, but Syracuse still should have done a lot better at home. But I want to focus, Kenton, on, I would say this was a more surprising upset than what Virginia did against Florida State. Like that, that's the game that got the headlines because Florida State was a top 10 team. But for Virginia Tech to upset NC State, who was favored, I think, by more than 2 touchdowns or around that, if I remember correctly. Virginia Tech, who 10.5, which maybe they knew something I didn't, because I thought it should have been about 17.5 in that game. Virginia Tech, by the way, who has an interim head coach, Philip Montgomery, a bunch of players who are either in the transfer portal or on their way to it, with that 30-day window being open. Kenton, how did that happen? And I mean, Dave Doran, he's not been fired yet, right? So is he going to finish out the year?
I believe he will, barring a catastrophe, because he is the winningest in terms of total wins. He is the winningest coach in NC State history and most ACC wins and all that good stuff. I'm going to tell you something. Donno. All year, Virginia Tech has played 4 games against FBS teams. The lowest that they had allowed coming into this game was 24 points against a South Carolina offense that is now ranked outside of the top 80 in every relevant stat. Passing yards, rushing yards, total yards, points per game, all of that. They rank outside the top 80. They held no team including them, they held no team to under 24 in terms of FBS teams coming into this game. If NC State scores 24 points, they get a classic Doran win. What do I mean by a classic Doran win? Doran is the king of wins that feel like losses,
Yeah.
Like the king of a win where it's like, we won, but you probably should have whooped the wheels off that team.
Yeah.
Well, he's lost his mojo for that, it seems. Credit to Virginia Tech. They ran the ball exquisitely well. Credit to Virginia Tech. They stopped the run exquisitely well. Wofford had more rushing yards against this team than NC State. And NC State came in with the leading rusher in the ACC in Hollywood Brown. Wofford did that. Wofford made CJ Bailey look unsure of himself, made the play calling uber conservative, Virginia Tech did all of these things to NC State. And I said it in the all week leading up to the game. I said, an animal leaps highest when wounded. This Virginia Tech team is wounded. Now, Donno, are you a hunter or a fisher by chance?
Barely. Living in Florida, you can't completely avoid fishing. So I go fishing from time to time, never hunted. least not
Now,
yet. Someday.
now, what do they say you do out of mercy when a fish or an animal is on its way out? What are you supposed to do?
Mercy kill.
Put it down. You're supposed to put it. They were supposed to put Virginia Tech down early, and instead they went to halftime trailing this Virginia Tech team. That's what you get. That's what you get. They went to halftime trailing 13-7, and I knew from right then. I said, this Virginia Tech team that was ready to quit, that has quit multiple times this season already, that had lost 3 of their top 6 tacklers, that had lost so many pieces to the portal or to injury per se, which I can confirm from a person who covered Virginia Tech that was sitting next to me and said, no, half of those injuries are not injuries. Those are just guys that don't want to play anymore.
Right.
And then we look up and see what we saw in this game. Credit to Virginia Tech for consistently fighting. Credit to them for not quitting in this game. They were down in this game early, and they did not quit. They rallied together, and they continued to fight, something that NC State did not do. So you ask, does Dave Doeren have a future at NC State beyond this one? He cannot. For those of you who don't know, I only go to games as a member of the media. I'm in the press box, right? You know what the press box is always near, or most of the time near? The donors. And you know what I was hearing?
Yeah.
You know what I was hearing from the donors after the game?
What?
I'm not giving another down to this program until we get a new coach. I heard that from multiple people who were donors from when I was there.
Yeah. That's how you force change to happen, right? I mean, you make it hit the wallet.
Yep. When you lose those folks, when you lose the people that are sitting next to the media, that's it. And multiple of them, I said it in the post game, and multiple of them contacted me afterwards to say, thank you for saying that, because we are tired and we need the world to know it. And I'm like, I'm just going to call it how I see it. I just call balls and strikes as I see it. And that's what I saw there. A fan base that is tired, that is frustrated, that started some chants that I can't even repeat on air without losing our clean rating. Y'all know me. I'm going to look out for that check always. So, that's just what it is, man. It's an unfortunate situation. Again, hats off to Virginia Tech. Hats off to them for fighting. Hats off to that back of theirs, because he was running his tail off. I mean, there was a point in the game where he had 5 carries and 4 of them went for first downs or longer. Hats off to him. NC State, it's looking like it's time for a hard reset.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a quick look at the AP Top 25 now. So Miami falls a spot. Miami was on their bye week, by the way. I fully expected them to drop a spot, Kenton, because I knew whoever won between Oregon and Penn State was likely going to jump Miami. That was a huge game. Miami didn't get a chance to play this past weekend, so not surprised. Although I'm also not surprised that Oregon beat Penn State, because Drew Aller and James Franklin are mud in big games, absolute mud. And Kenton and I, especially Kenton, have been saying it for years. You cannot trust them to win a big game at home or any. They had like 111,000 fans in the stands. You broke all of their hearts. Was fully expected, but Miami drops a spot. Now, Florida State dropped 11 spots. They're actually a spot now behind Virginia Tech, who's at number. I think Virginia Tech dropped a spot as well. They were 16. They dropped to 17.
Georgia Tech,
Miami and Georgia Tech both dropped 1 spot. Florida State dropped 11 spots, but we have UVA now in the mix there. Virginia moves into the top 25, number 24, after beating Florida State. So any thought? And listen, again, like Miami dropped on their week off, but again, kind of expected. Georgia Tech dropped. They could have dropped them a couple spots. I wouldn't have complained after that game. But did Florida State deserve to drop that many spots, Kenton? 11 spots. Was that too much?
I don't see how any of the teams that dropped from the ACC dropped as far as they did, or how they dropped. Don't get me wrong. Florida State, yes, you cannot lose a game to Virginia. Cool. But here's my thing. Virginia was a team that is very apparently on the brink of being a top 25 team. As you see from that win, they get vaulted in the top 25, right? How do you say that? And how do you move back Georgia Tech for almost losing to a bad Wake Forest team? Meanwhile, Tennessee almost lost to Mississippi State. I'm sorry. What are we supposed to? It's Starkville. What are we doing here? Well, they beat Arizona
Vegas.
State. I don't. Again, to me, this is the stuff that I talk about where I say The AP poll and all these folks who don't do their due diligence affect perception.
Yeah.
And because they affect perception, now they're affecting rankings, which are going to affect people's real life pockets, which is why Donno and I took such exception to, I don't have to walk you through my process and I can rank whoever I want, wherever I want. Of course you can, but look at stuff like this happening where, an ACC team almost loses to another ACC team. Oh, they're terrible. They're awful. A SEC team almost loses to an SEC team that they probably should. Well, that team's just great down there. That's just a great team. That's just a wonderful team there.
I mean, you make all the right points, which again makes me feel sad that I'm so conditioned to expect ACC teams to drop spots despite either not playing or winning a close game. Like I'm so conditioned to it. I knew it would happen, but Kenton is right. It shouldn't happen. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On ACC your first listen. I know there's a few more games we wanted to devote time to. We will this week. We also have a full slate of games coming up this weekend, but we will talk about Duke over Syracuse. We'll talk more about Louisville over Pittsburgh and Cal beating Boston College. Good bounce back win for them. So we have a lot more coming up right here on Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.